2023 wasn't a good year for the Carolina Panthers, but I'm trying to make 2024 a better one for myself. Get started on your resolutions with Factor so you're ready for the new year. Factor's ready-to-eat meal delivery takes the stress out of meal planning and sets you up for success in the new year. Skip the grocery stores, prep work, and cooking fatigue. Instead, get chef-crafted, dietitian-approved meals delivered right to your door. With over 35 meals to choose from per week, including keto options, calorie smart, vegan plus veggie, and more, plus over 55 weekly add-ons, you'll have a ton of nutritious and flavorful options to kickstart your resolutions. Skip that overpriced takeout trap. Factor is cheaper and way more delicious than takeout. Get chef-crafted, restaurant-quality meals delivered right to your door, and they're ready to heat and eat in just 2 minutes, which means more time for you. Head to factormeals.com/C350 and use the promo code C350 to get 50% off. That's code C350 at factormeals.com/C350 to get 50% off.
Looking for a fun way to win up to 25 times your money this basketball season? Test your skills on Prize Picks, the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Just select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projected stats, and place your entry. You could turn $10 into $250. Right now, Prize Picks will match your first deposit up to $100. Just visit prizepicks.com/fan and use code FAN. That's code FAN at prizepicks.com/fan.
Must be present in certain states. Visit prizepicks.com for restrictions and details.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Carolina Cat Chronicles C3 Carolina Panthers Detroit Lions Week 11 2018 NFL season preview for C3 Carolina Cat Chronicles. My name is Joshua the Shadow Cat Outland, and I'm here to bring you this week's preview. Now, last time we saw the Carolina Panthers in action, well, it didn't quite go the way we anticipated it. Let's just get that out of the way right now. I believe this is a game you want to just burn the film for and move on, especially if you're Panthers fans. Unfortunately, this is a loss that does tend to linger and haunt the Carolina Panthers this past week. They will be looking to get back to their winning ways against the Detroit Lions. We are going to take a step back and talk about that Panthers-Steelers game Thursday night in primetime. The Carolina Panthers, a short week on the road, traveled, and they got blown out by the Pittsburgh Steelers 52-21. That game looked like it was going to go the way the Carolina Panthers wanted. That first drive, Christian McCaffrey actually accounted for most of that touchdown drive, and the Panthers would score quick before things would implode.
2nd and 3. McCaffrey, another first down. Another big run. Quarterback draw. For 7 on 4th down this season is Carolina. McCaffrey gets it and gets it. You've thrown it twice, run it 6 times. Here's McCaffrey. Full head of steam. McCaffrey. Touchdown. Christian McCaffrey able to get it in.
That was the best the Carolina Panthers would look, unfortunately, as the Pittsburgh Steelers would take less than 10 seconds to reply with a strong touchdown pass from Ben Roethlisberger to Juju Smith-Schuster to tie the game at 7-all.
From the 25, Roethlisberger pulls it back, throws, has Juju Smith-Schuster. What a start to the night. One play, bang, touchdown Steelers. 75 yards to number 19. How about that answer?
Bradbury had his eyes in the backfield, and with the little pump action there by Ben Roethlisberger, Smith-Schuster is able to get in behind.
I'm still not sure what Bradbury saw there that made him jump on that play fake, but it allowed a 75-yard touchdown. Unfortunately, the bleeding would continue for the Carolina Panthers, as on the very next drive, after a kickoff return that was brought back to the 33 that was taken back by a holding penalty, 1st and 10, the Carolina Panthers would watch that 7-all lead collapse, and they would never again be in the game running.
Penalty cost 21 yards of field position. Newton keeps, he's in trouble, throws up for grabs and picked. Intercepted by Williams, touchdown! Fitz Williams with pressure by T.J. Watt.
Way as linemen are pulling out to that direction, and I don't know if he thinks he might be able to throw one into.
Unfortunately, from there, the game would snowball and collapse out of control en route to what was a 52-21 destruction of the Carolina Panthers. Now, we're going to look ahead toward the week ahead, Lions and Panthers. The Carolina Panthers actually have a very good chances of bouncing back in this game. And looking at the stats of both the Lions as well as the Panthers, you would actually see they are very similar. They are mirror images of each other. Carolina at home, they are 5-0. Detroit are 2-2. Away record, Carolina a little bit concerning, 1-3 on the season compared to Detroit's 1-4 on the season. That thing to keep in mind, Detroit is not exactly a juggernaut at home as the Carolina Panthers are. Points scored, Carolina is 9th in the NFL with 251 points scored, whereas the Detroit Lions in 2018 are 20th in points scored with 202 points. That seems to be a major difference between their records, as one is 6-3, the other is 3-6. The Carolina Panthers points allowed on defense, 23rd in the league with 232 points. Amazing how just 8 points is the difference between 5 spots. But the Detroit Lions are 244 points allowed on the season, and they are ranked 28th in the NFL. Their takeaways is a massive difference as well. 12 differential. The Carolina Panthers have had 6 more takeaways than they have given up. They sit at 7th overall on the season, whereas the Detroit Lions are the exact opposite. They have allowed 6 more takeaways than they have had by their defense. They sit at 24th overall on the year. The Carolina Panthers lag behind the Detroit Lions a bit in passing yardage per game, 218 to 246. However, the rushing yardage per game is a big difference. The Carolina Panthers have been averaging the league 3rd place, 138 rushing yards per game, while the Detroit Lions average about 100 yards per game, which is good for 23rd place. On the defense, Carolina allows a lot more passing yards per game than the Lions. They've allowed 258 passing yards per game, good for 22nd, whereas the Detroit Lions have allowed 229 passing yards per game, 8th. However, there's a little bit of disparity here, and we're about to cut into this. This is because the Carolina Panthers are a pretty damn good rushing defense. They allow 99 yards per game, which is 9th in the NFL, whereas the Detroit Lions allow a damning 132 rushing yards per game, which is good enough to be 28th in the NFL. And this is where I think that the Carolina Panthers have their chance to bounce back and recover and avoid allowing this season, the 2018 season, to collapse after that blowout loss by the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Detroit Lions, they're not known for their running prowess. Kerryon Johnson is just now starting to take off as a running back. He's had a few up and down performances indicative of the Detroit Lions. Honestly, their season, they've had up and down performances as well. They've never really been a stable, consistent team. As bad as the Carolina Panthers have looked at points, that 52-21 loss notwithstanding, the Detroit Lions have just looked even more inconsistent and even more unstable. And I think that's going to be their undoing against the Carolina Panthers this week. That's going to allow the Carolina Panthers to bounce back strong, and as well as that, a favorable schedule. Looking ahead, they have the Lions on the road, they have the Seahawks at home, they have the Buccaneers, which are in collapse mode, and they have the Browns, who have never historically been a very good team, at least the new Cleveland Browns iteration of the 2000 era. That bodes very well for the Carolina Panthers having a chance to not only compete for a wild card, but also have an outside shot at the NFC South Division, depending on how those games against the Saints and Atlanta go in weeks 15 through 17. Those final 3 games, I'm already telling you, are going to determine whether the Carolina Panthers are your division champions or just your 5th or 6th seed wild card. As always, the key for the Carolina Panthers in this game, get after the quarterback by stuffing the run. Kerryon Johnson is he's a pretty good running back. He's actually proven to be a force for the Detroit Lions. But the Panthers have the defense that could bring down Kerryon Johnson. I expect to see Luke Kuechly hatted on top of Kerryon Johnson early and often. On the flip side, Matthew Stafford, he doesn't have the weapons that Cam Newton does. And that's another reason I think it's going to be a downfall for the Detroit Lions. They're not going to have the ability to hang up points with the Carolina Panthers. I can't believe I'm going to say this, but compared to the Detroit Lions, the Carolina Panthers are in actuality an offensive juggernaut. Cam Newton, while he's not putting up a lot of passing yards, he is actually thrown for more touchdowns and less interceptions than Matthew Stafford. Cam Newton now sits at 17 passing touchdowns to 5 interceptions on the season. Added that as well, he's also got over 300 yards rushing and 4 more touchdowns. That adds up to a 21-5 touchdown to interception turnover ratio for Cam Newton and the Panthers. Matthew Stafford, on the other hand, looking forward to him. He has 16 touchdown passes compared to 8 interception. That is a 2-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio. But the big thing for him, he has been sacked 29 times on the year. And what's worse for the Lions is 16 of those sacks have occurred over the past 2 weeks. Now, playing against Khalil Mack and the Bears might skew that stat just a bit against them. But it still goes to say that he just does not have the weapons. And they just released Golden Tate as well. And the Panthers have just had better weapons and better opportunities finding those weapons and making plays happen than the Detroit Lions and Matthew Stafford have had. Matthew Stafford has basically been struggling to carry the Detroit Lions pretty much his entire career. It has been Matthew Stafford asked to carry the Lions without much help since they let Megatron go. And I don't think that's going to cut it against the Carolina Panthers. I absolutely expect Christian McCaffrey to have a strong performance. He's actually been having strong performances all season. This is considered to be a breakout sophomore season for Christian McCaffrey. And I think you can pencil him in for another 130 yards of offense and probably another 2 or 3 total touchdowns on the day as well. I have the Carolina Panthers rolling the Detroit Lions, getting back to their winning ways. Long story short, I think Cam Newton gets back to doing what he does. You're not going to see the same mistakes that you saw against the Pittsburgh Steelers. You're definitely not going to see a play like that pick six that the Steelers had against Cam Newton. I think Cam Newton gets back to his winning ways, spreading the ball around, making his weapons work for that yak yardage, and the Lions are just not going to be able to keep pace. I actually have the Carolina Panthers winning this game in Detroit. Devin Funchess going off. I think the Detroit Lions know that they cannot cheat up against the run. They tried to do that last year, and Ed Dixon and Cam Newton made them pay, and now they absolutely cannot do that this year. They might have had a chance to do that last year with Greg Olsen out, but Greg Olsen is healthy and playing this game. If they try to cheat up against the run like they did last time, they're going to suffer even worse consequences than they did last year when we won a close affair in Detroit. Final predictions for this game. I think the Carolina Panthers defense have a bounce back performance with 5 sacks on the Detroit Lions and Matthew Stafford. I think that James Bradberry actually comes up with his very first pick of the season. Speaking of James Bradberry, unfortunately word is coming out that he's been sent home with an undiagnosed illness. Will that come into play? Will he actually play this week is a question. And that'll be answered by the Panthers training staff later on this week. Other things to keep an eye on here. Other key injuries for the Detroit Lions. Marvin Jones actually left the game against the Chicago Bears last week with a knee contusion, but it is very likely he will be available for week 11 against the Carolina Panthers. Sam Martin, the punter, the punter being a key player, go figure. But in a game like this, I think he is actually going to have he's going to play his part because he can allow the Panthers to have a longer field position, give them worse field position, give them a longer field to play with, and maybe they can keep some points off the board. Sam Martin actually has an unspecified injury, and right now it's unknown if he's going to play against the Panthers. TJ Lang, he's actually got a neck injury. We don't know if he's going to play against the Carolina Panthers. Luke Wilson, their tight end, he is suffering with a shoulder injury. It's unknown whether he's going to play against us. Darius Slay, as we mentioned in the C3 podcast earlier this week, he has got a questionable injury with a knee. He's been having that injury all season off and on, and he's not good to go against the Carolina Panthers. And that could be huge. With Darius Slay on the sidelines, you can almost guarantee that the number one wide receiver, in this case Devin Funchess, is going to explode against his hometown Detroit Lions. In fact, Devin Funchess is probably a good pickup in fantasy football this week if he can snag him off the waiver wire. Another one who might be someone to look out for, Curtis Samuel, DJ Moore. They could be good plays in fantasy football. For the Carolina Panthers, I mentioned James Bradberry. He's injured with a key illness, and we got to see how that progresses this week. Another player to watch, Torrey Smith. He's actually come on earlier this week and said that he's feeling better, but he's still listed as questionable in this game against the Detroit Lions. He's probably the biggest name on the injury list that we didn't know about before, being Torrey Smith and James Bradberry. Darrell Williams has been placed on injured reserve due to a knee injury suffered early in the year, and we don't know if he's going to be activated in time for Week 11 against Detroit. Taking all things into consideration, yardage allowed, points scored, rushing offense, I have Christian McCaffrey blowing up for over 100 yards. I have the Detroit Lions' Kerryon Johnson struggling to hit 100 yards. I have Cam Newton continuing his 65 to 75% accuracy ways, 250 yards passing, 3 touchdowns total on the day. I have the Carolina Panthers winning this game 36-17 in a game that's not going to be close after halftime. Of course, predictions are one thing, previews are one thing. We're going to have to see how the Carolina Panthers offense, defense, and special teams reacts to that loss in prime time against the Pittsburgh Steelers and see if they can live up to their potential, blow out the Lions on the road, exercise their demons, and stop this season from becoming a tailspin effort. From C3, Carolina Cat Chronicles, this has been Joshua the Shadow Cat Outland with your Carolina Panthers Detroit Lions Week 11 2018 season preview. Thanks for tuning in.
Looking for a fun way to win up to 25 times your money this basketball season? Test your skills on Prize Picks, the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Just select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projected stats, and place your entry. You could turn $10 into $250. Right now, Prize Picks will match your first deposit up to $100. Just visit prizepicks.com/fan and use code FAN. That's code FAN at prizepicks.com/fan.
Must be present in certain states. Visit prizepicks.com for restrictions and details.